Hello everyone, my name is Owen Hart. I come from the University of Colorado at Boulder. Today, I'd like to start by recognizing one of America's proudest moments, the moon landing.
Here, men, from the planet Earth, first set foot upon the moon, July 1969, AD. It came in peace.
In 1961, President John Kennedy declared that America would have a man on the moon by the end of the decade. With the Apollo 11 mission in July of 1969, we accomplished the impossible. We set a new expectation of what could be done, and put to shame the phrase, "the sky is the limit." Today, however, things are a little bit different. Instead of the 4.5% of the federal budget NASA received back in the 60s, they now receive a measly 0.5%. What happened, guys? Looking back at the Apollo missions marks one of the greatest achievements in human history. It showed us what could be accomplished when we dedicate our best minds toward a common goal. All of this inspiration and determination was rooted to the idea of exploring a new frontier. I believe we now need to focus on the next one, Mars. Now, a lot of the debate on whether or not to go to Mars is based around why we should invest such large amounts of money into a place that kind of resembles Arizona. Pretty much the same, right? Not exactly. Since the birth of astronomy in the 17th century, society has been captivated by our neighboring planet. Here is this barren, harsh red planet with various landscapes that show evidence of a brutal and eventful past. Like any mystery we've faced, we let the scientists go to work in hopes to find ways to decipher the complex history of Mars. After several failed missions of sending robotic crafts from both the US as well as the Soviets, NASA's Mariner 4 in 1964 was the first lucky spacecraft to focus its camera upon the red planet, returning the first image ever of an alien planet. Served as a daunting reminder of the harshness of space and the rarity of the diversity of life that we have back here on Earth. Decades of scientific research into the landscape led to the shocking discovery that Mars too once exhibited erosion, causing a diverse landscape riddled with craters, mountains, and canals. More importantly, though, is that the erosion led to the assumption that it came from liquid water. I'm not talking a little puddle or a pool. By today's estimates, it's believed that at one point, Mars had enough water to occupy almost its entire northern hemisphere with an ocean, about equivalent to our Arctic Ocean. One of the many but most important requirements for life to exist is an abundance of this liquid water in order to support various biological processes. Is it really so hard to believe that the organic life that we see around us every day may have once existed on Mars? A tantalizing idea. In the following decades, NASA's best and brightest worked to put a robotic craft on the surface of Mars. These intricate science labs on wheels were capable of analyzing and deciphering the Martian soil in hopes to answer some of the mysteries that we have. In 2004, we sent Wally to Mars, also known as the Spirit and Opportunity rovers, and then later, Curiosity in 2012, who started the fashion trend of Martian selfies. All of these crafts had the common goal of uncovering what important role water played in Mars's history. With the help of these guys, astronomers and geologists alike are finally understanding and accepting that Mars may not have been so different from our blue planet. Obviously, things have changed over the years. National interest in space exploration is nothing like it once was. Looking at it, it's hard to imagine that we can possibly conduct such a large-scale mission like this. But aside from the physical accomplishment of succeeding, there are many other reasons why a mission like this would benefit the world as a whole. Our very own Buzz Aldrin thinks that going to Mars seems central to the vision many Americans have for the country. With the help of these private enterprises like Space Exploration Technologies and Lockheed Martin, we're a lot closer to succeeding than most people expect. Lockheed Martin, a prominent name in the aerospace industry, is currently working on a 7-crewed capsule called Orion, which one day might serve as courier to Mars. Space Exploration Technology, SpaceX for short, and their head honcho Elon Musk are working on a similar capsule called Dragon 2, again 7-manned. However, even with the Orion and Dragon 2 capsules, a deep space habitat will be required to provide the necessary storage and additional crew habitat for this lengthy trip. The Orion capsule and its counterpart, the Space Launch System, SLS for short, will be the largest rocket ever built and is said to be ready for a Mars trip by 2033. On the other side, SpaceX and their tandem of the Falcon Heavy and the Dragon 2 capsule are said to be capable of getting to Mars by 2026. Based on our previous experiences with aerospace missions, it's a dubious proposition to assume that these will be finished on time. All we really have is a rough estimate of what we're looking at. Certainly, getting there will not be the only obstacle we have to face. Developing all of the required spacecraft systems capable of supporting the round trip to Mars is no easy task. We also need to consider the sustainability. Deep space propulsion systems are still under development, and the environmental control of life support systems for extended missions are still being adapted from the ISS. Perhaps more interesting than the engineering feats that must be overcome are the untested psychological impacts of being in such isolation for an extended period of time. Mars would be the first space mission to have a noticeable communications delay, preventing astronauts from having any real-time conversations with anyone back home. This delay can range anywhere from 3 to 22 minutes depending on the planet's orbits. Thinking about it, would you really be able to have a conversation on a regular basis with someone where every sentence takes 5 minutes to respond? It's not very likely. More importantly, however, is that the instructions and reports from mission control would not be given in real time, meaning that any hiccups or any decisions that must be made on the spot need to come from a competent and reliable crew capable of trusting themselves. This is only one of the factors of the psychological stresses. Although how do we really know what those may be? Thankfully, Dr. Diego Urbina and a group of 5 other brave scientists wanted to see what kind of psychological barriers they would face in a situation like this. Testing it the only way they could, they locked themselves in a room together. Called the Mars 500 mission, they were kept in isolation in an environment similar to what we may be sending people to Mars on for 520 days. They were not allowed to leave, and any outside communications were limited and delayed with the effort to mimic a real-life situation. With the knowledge Dr. Urbina provided, we will have a good idea of what type of people will be able to handle the circumstances that this mission will entail. Unfortunately, promoting an interplanetary mission to the businessmen of America is almost like selling the Amish cell phones. Not because there won't be benefits, but because we may not know exactly what they will be. Looking at the Apollo missions, originally sold with the goal to win a war, maybe a little bit of the science fiction Star Trek kind of reality, we didn't know what would come out of it. Technological innovations like solar panels, MRIs and CAT scans from NASA's digital imaging technology, Velcro, cameras now used in most cell phones. Through the space program, we have improved computer systems, cancer therapy, water purification, global search and rescue systems. The list goes on and on. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you about all of these awesome benefits that will come out of a Mars mission, because honestly, we're just going to have to find out for ourselves. Looking back, the conception of the space program wasn't sold with the promise of future innovation. It was sold as means of setting the bar to a level never thought attainable. JFK may have said it best when he was describing the age-old question of why the moon.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept.
Watching what was once considered something that could only happen in science fiction happen right in front of your eyes is inspiring to say the least. There was a large peak in science degrees shortly after the Apollo landing. The excitement that was generated by the space program attracted young people into science degrees such as computer science, engineering, and mathematics. A survey in 2009 found that 50% of the internationally renowned scientists who published in the prestigious journal Nature during the preceding 3 years had become inspired by Apollo. Now, there are benefits that we can state right now without having to look to the future. One of which would be the possible collaboration between countries. Like the International Space Station, we will most likely be requiring support both financially and scientifically if we want to reach Mars in the near future. This will help our friendships with other governments and possibly provide allies if needed. And if nothing else, it will strengthen our capacity for a peaceful, globally coordinated activities both on Earth and in space. The first 5 decades of human spaceflight had a huge impact on humanity's social development. From Yuri Gagarin's first trip to space to Neil Armstrong's first step on the moon, it truly was a giant leap for mankind. On a trip to Mars, astronauts will travel more than 150 million miles over the course of 6 to 8 months, and that's just one way. We've come so far since our first step on the moon. It's only right that we set these outrageous goals to live up to what JFK did over 50 years ago. Doing it not because it's easy, but because it's hard. Eerie how applicable that quote is still today. So what's next? In what direction do we need to set our sights in order to inspire the next generation of astronauts, pioneers, and innovators? The moon landing was nearly half a century ago, and humans' accomplishments in space can be counted on one hand, maybe two. It's time for us to take the next giant leap for mankind and set our sights beyond our loyal moon and towards Mars. Considering both the technological and societal benefits of a mission like this, it only leaves one question: why we're not already there. Thank you.